Good evening and welcome. Tonight we will be going over the history of Alto Paraguay and Alto Paraná in Paraguay. Paraguay, if you don't know, is like the weird cousin of South America. It's just very different historically and culturally. It's like the weird cousin to the other countries. Paraguay has always had a very kind of eccentric, bizarre history. The thing is, though, is that eccentric, bizarre history did not really happen in these two regions for various reasons. Over here, it's because this region is newer. It's only existed since the 20th century. And up here, it's because no one lives here. There's people that live here, but it is the least populated region of Paraguay. It's incredibly sparsely populated, and that's because the region is either farmland or a flat forested region known in this part of South America as the Chaco or the Gran Chaco. Pretty much all of Alto Paraguay is part of the Chaco. Pretty much this whole section of Paraguay is part of the Gran Chaco. The Chaco is, so think of the Amazon, right? It's thick with trees. It's hot and humid. It's wet. It's just teeming with animal life. And just like take that image and just make it like really boring. Okay, that was a bad idea to describe it like that. Think of it as, lots of trees. There's animals, but not like the Amazon. It's wet, but not like the Amazon. It's full of trees, but not like the Amazon. It's just like a very tree-filled expanse of just kind of flat rolling hills, little waterways here and there. It's just like a wannabe Amazon, but not even close, if that makes sense. Am I making sense? I'll show you pictures on Google Earth. This region up here is the Chaco Reserve. This chunk here is set aside because of the deforestation that has been occurring here in Alto Paraguay. It's one of the worst cases of deforestation in the world. It's pretty dire, and I'll show you again on Google Earth what it looks like nowadays. But the regions that haven't been destroyed to make farms and cattle ranches are beautiful national parks preserving the Chaco landscape. Let's go into history. We'll talk about the history of this place, and then we'll hop over here and do the exact same, and then we'll check out Google Earth. Alto Paraguay. One of Paraguay's nicknames is that it's the island of South America, and that's because its borders are almost entirely made up of waterways. So Alto Paraguay, because this is the Paraguay River right here, making the border between Paraguay and Brazil. This region was not really a lot for a long time. It wasn't until like about the 18th century where Europeans started to settle in the area and start to build their farms. There was one major problem, however, and that was the Bandeirantes. Who are the Bandeirantes? The Bandeirantes, which bandit, hence the name, were Brazilians who would go out into the wilderness in search of adventure, in search of expanding Brazil, finding lands that they could claim as Brazil, and also looking for slaves. They would go and grab people out of the villages, burn them down, and just force everyone into slavery, because slavery was big business in Brazil for a long time. So they were a menace. especially way out here in the middle of nowhere where people couldn't defend themselves. So most of these towns you see here along the river were formed to kind of band the local farmers together, because they're always stronger in numbers, to protect themselves. And that's how we get the capital of the region, Fuerte Olimpo, right here. It's not very big at all, but it's the capital of the department here. The name apparently came from one of the big hills, which we'll look at on Google Earth. Apparently, according to legend, reminded the founders of Mount Olympus in Greece. So, Fuerte Olimpo was founded in 1792. Now, a lot was about to happen in Paraguayan history. In the 1860s, we have the War of the Triple Alliance, where Paraguay was feeling extra spicy and angry and said, we're going to start taking over land. And everyone around said no. In particular was Brazil and Argentina and even Uruguay down here. Can you see Uruguay? You can't. It's Uruguay. The Triple Alliance all declared war on Paraguay. And as you can imagine, Paraguay lost horribly. It was a devastating war to Paraguay. It completely changed the entire country. How devastated they were by it. Something like half the population died. Almost all of the men in the country died. It was devastating to the country. This region up here was captured by Brazil during that war. It became part of Brazil. I think like all of this here became part of Brazil. When they were working out what's going to happen to the land after the war, because obviously the Triple Alliance was killing it, apparently Argentina was like, well, we'll take this area. It can belong to us. So Brazil was like, cool. After the war ended, Brazil pulled out, and Argentina just never pulled in. So it just remained part of Paraguay. Argentina claimed it, and they never did anything with it. So it's still part of Paraguay. Many years later, in the 1930s, we would have the Chaco War, which was between Paraguay and Bolivia, which is up here. Bolivia was in a spicy mood. Paraguay was always in a spicy mood, but Bolivia was very salty because they had a war with Peru. I forget. I didn't research Bolivian history for this. And they lost their access to the sea. And they were furious. So they said, well, if we can't expand that way, we're going to expand this way. And we're going to say that all of this Chaco area belongs to Bolivia. And Paraguay said, oh, you've messed with the wrong dude. And that kicked off the Chaco War, which lasted about 3 years, I think, and was also very devastating to the populations of both countries. Now you think it's the Chaco War. This region is part of the Chaco. Surely something interesting happened there. No, it didn't. From what I can tell, there were no major battles here. It was all in this part of the Chaco, not this part. It was an important outpost area to send supplies to where the conflicts were happening. But not much happened up here. This area has always just been farmland. And like I said, deforestation, it got really, really bad in the 20th century. Just plowing down trees without a care in the world, thinking, well, we need money, and this is good ranch land if there weren't so many trees. So we just get rid of the trees and build ranches. There's obviously a lot being done to try to, well, you can't really restore that land because people are farming on it and have their ranches on it. But just to protect what's left, there's still a lot of issues with it. There's still people saying, well, how are we going to make a livelihood? Of course, the environment's important, but what about, our lives? It's a tough topic, but thankfully the country's doing a lot. to make sure that the deforestation in this region isn't as bad as it could be. It's still pretty bad, but not nearly as bad as it once was. So that is the history of Alto Paraguay. Nothing has happened here. Literally, like, Argentina didn't want it. That's how uninteresting this place is, but still really neat, I think. This region down here has an interesting history, but let's talk about its geography first, because as you might have guessed from the name, it is along the Paraná River. The Paraná is a really incredible river. It's the second longest river in South America, of course, besides the Amazon. And once again, think of the Amazon River. Just picture it in your mind. The twisty, turning waterway, huge and expansive, filled with wildlife, and just like tone it down a little bit, and you get the Paraná. It's still quite huge. It's still full of so much water, but not on like the epic scale of the Amazon, but it's still pretty epic, especially in this region here. This area is like an island within the island of Paraguay, because it's completely surrounded by water, and this whole region here is very marshy and very wet. It's almost submerged itself if it wasn't for all of the major cities. And what's even more important about this waterway is that this is where we can find the Itaipu Dam. You can see right there, Itaipu Dam. Right here on the border with Brazil. Most of it's in Brazil, but part of it here is in Paraguay, shared between the two countries. The Itaipu Dam is the largest dam in the Western Hemisphere. Absolutely massive. We'll take a look at it on Google Earth, of course. Definitely one of the more important areas of this region. And you can see here is Ciudad del Este, the second largest city in Paraguay besides the capital city of Asunción. Big, bustling skyscrapers kind of city. Really, really neat. But once upon a time, this area was just little villages making their way. You have all that water, you may as well farm. But there was a problem in the area. The villages could not thrive. Can you guess why? Why would these villages in Paraguay, with all of that wet marshy land, not be able to farm? It was because of the bandeirantes coming in and invading and kidnapping as many people as they could to sell in Brazil as slaves. So many of the little towns were built as little forts, just like in Alto Paraguay. And not much happened there until the 1950s. At least from what I can find in my research. If you're Paraguayan or know a lot more details of South American history, let me know in the comments, because I couldn't find anything between the early 1800s on until kind of modern day. In 1957, the city was founded by the current, I'd say leader, I think it's technically president, but was more accurately a dictator, by Alfredo Stroessner. Said, we need a city here, just kind of keep an eye on Brazil over here. And it was originally called, in Spanish, it was called President Stroessner Port. Once Alfredo Stroessner was no longer in power, they were like, we gotta change the name. And they just settled on East City, because you can't get less descriptive than that. And it became a big, bustling center, mainly because it was right next to Brazil, and because you had this big waterway here. The Itaipu Dam was finished in 1984. They also built a friendship bridge between Paraguay and Brazil. And that's all the history I could find in Alto Paraná. It's mostly little farming areas, and then you have the big city here. It's really interesting. So let's hop over to Google Earth then and check it out. let's see what we've got. Let's see, I've started off in Alto Paraguay. Let's zoom out first so you can see exactly where we are on the planet. Here is beautiful South America. You can see the dark green of the Amazon up here. Brazil over here, Argentina, the Andes Mountains, and right in the middle is Paraguay. In the Chaco region, you can see all throughout here. You can see how it's like a much different color from the more forested Amazon. Definitely starts to get a lot lighter before we enter the Pantanal. So let's take a look at this department. You can see down here that all of the little farms are very easy to see from above, and that's because they were carved out of the forest. You can see the line right here. That's a good example of where, expansion stopped there on the farmland. Very, very sad to just like comb over this and see all of the destruction. But, on the other hand, these are people's lives. This is what they live off of. So it's a very complicated subject, deforestation. But thankfully, we have the Parque Nacional Defensores del Chaco. Let's take a look. So this is the Chaco landscape. Okay, this is a really good example. You've got these trees, but it's still like it's not wet like the rainforest. It's a little yeehaw, but not as dry as like the deserts could be. I guess it's more like a savanna kind of climate, but with like way more trees. There's a cool statue there. I'm not sure who. They have a lion. They're there at the sign. Some cacti as well. This is a beautiful statue. I'm not sure who that's supposed to be. It's giving, what's that name of the goddess who rides the tapir in the Amazon? Maria Leonza? Something like that? It reminds me of that. I don't think that's her, but it reminds me of that. Like this goddess protector of the Amazon. There's a tortoise. So cute. But yeah. Fields and big sky country and yeah, it's kind of giving savanna, isn't it? It's kind of giving like Kruger National Park in a little kind of way. That would have been a better way to describe the Chaco, other than like the smaller, sadder Amazon. But oh well, you get the idea. I've combed this region looking for places to show you, and I've got a lot of nothing, but here is Fuerte Olimpo. Not many pictures to show you, but you can see the big hills. We put in 3D. You can see my stomach's growling, I'm sorry. These big hills here, right in the middle of the town, which apparently reminded them enough of Mount Olympus. You can see the Paraguay River there. Brazil's are right there. And yeah, there's a neat little sanctuary up there. Sierra del Fuerte Olimpo. No, there's no pictures there. Not very exciting slideshows in Alto Paraguay, but it's mostly because there's not much to see. Look at this watershed region. Ooh, it's so swampy. But you ain't seen nothing yet. Let's hop over to Alto Paraná if you think that's swampy. Let me zoom out so we're not just following the rivers all the way down. Oops, and I was crooked. Here is Alto Paraná. Look at this landscape. Look at how wet it is. Oh my gosh. All of the water from the rivers just creating this just intense swampy farmland region. It's really, really fascinating, isn't it? Let's see if this rancho has any pictures. I can see what it looks like. Wait for it to load. Wow, that's beautiful. I love the trees there making a tree line. Ooh, camping in the woods. Not great pictures, but really pretty. Wow. But yeah, interesting. I think I was looking at this museum and it had lots of really poorly done taxidermy animals. It just made me sad, so we won't look at that. But there is a cool museum there about the ethnic history. It just has a lot of taxidermied animals that look really bad. But anyway, here is big ol' Ciudad del Este. Oh wait, I want to show you the slideshow so you can get an idea. Like, this is a big bustling city. It's like an actual city. It's not like how Fuerte Olimpo is considered like the capital city. This is an actual city. It's a huge center of commerce. Very busy. And I mean, it does help that Brazil's literally right here, right? So here's the Paraná River. We have to go see the dam. This is the Itaipu Dam, which looks kind of small from above. Let's take a closer look. Itaipu. It is big. There's a good picture in here that kind of put it in perspective. Let me find it. Look at that. Oh, that must be so loud. This, like, so like that would be like a person's height, right? And look at that. Oh my gosh, it's gigantic. Like, there's a bus compared to the dam. It's so massive, but it generates almost all of Paraguay's power. Ooh, flexible. It's a very, very important dam, not just to Paraguay, but also to Brazil, since it generates so much. Oh, you can take your picture there, the dam in the background. It generates so much hydroelectric energy for both countries. There's a robot. A little checkpoint to get by, I suppose. And then there's the big Paraná River, making these big mushy, marshy waterways in Alto Paraná. And yes, in American English we say piranha, like the fish, the chompy fish. That's where the name comes from. There are lots of cool sights in this region, but what I really want to show you is some of the other little waterways. You can see this is the Monday River, and this is Saltos del Monday, which I used in my trivia this month. I do trivia live streams every Wednesday. Check it out. I said, what is Saltos del Monday? And nobody knew because it was such an unusual name. Saltos del Monday. It is an absolutely gorgeous waterfall. From what I understand in my research, like one of the most beloved waterfalls in Paraguay. It is huge and stunning. Oh my gosh. So incredible. There are lots of waterfalls in this region, but I think this is the prettiest one. We could go zip lining over it. I don't know how I feel about that. It makes my stomach drop just thinking about it. But beautiful rainbows too, isn't it? Hiking trails too. It looks like the Monday Falls. Yes, Saltos del Monday. I think the other big waterfall is further down. I don't think it's part of this region, so I won't talk about it. But yeah, lots of watery areas here. Ecoturismo. Ooh, fancy. How fun. Ecotourism is delightful. Just visiting without harming anything and just being completely natural. Fun. But yeah. That is going to be about it for tonight. I've tried to look at other things to show you. It's not as interesting. And all the times I would find something cool, I would either end up in Bolivia or Brazil. Because that's Paraguay for you. You think I'm kidding about Paraguay being the weird cousin. It's very true. So yeah, that is going to be it for tonight. if you enjoyed this type of content, please consider subscribing, as this is an ongoing series on my channel. Next, we're going to be heading over, speaking of weird cousin countries, we're going to Latvia, one of the many weird cousins of Europe, to explore 2 regions over there. So be sure to subscribe so you won't miss out. I hope that you found this video relaxing and educational, and I hope that you have a good